In the whole history of India, only two rulers, Ashok and Aurangzeb, were able to control whole of Indian subcontinent, almost whole of Indian subcontinent, and both of them led to the end of the empire. But today we talk about Aurangzeb, one of the most controversial ruler in India. And there is a timely text called Maasir-i-Alamgiri, which describes about his rule. And if you read it, it's very hard to say that it wasn't religious extremism that led to the end of his empire. For example, in almost 1669, he ordered the destruction of schools and temples, and one of them was a temple in Varanasi. There's a big controversy around that temple because nowadays it is called Gyanvapi and it has become a mosque. Then he went on to reimpose the Jizya tax, which is a tax against the non-Muslims, and strangely it was only abolished by his own great-grandfather Akbar. So events like these are hard to explain and clearly tell us about the religious ideology, extremist ideology he followed, which also led to the end of his empire. But at the same time, he also gave grants to Hindu temples, and he also had Hindu generals in his own army, which makes his image a bit more complex. But still, there is no justification for the temple destruction. But the most interesting part about him is his last 26 years, which he spent in Deccan, fighting against the Marathas. And this was going to be the decline of Mughals and the rise of Marathas. At the end, he did win against them, only to lose again. Because the Marathas were using the geography and the guerrilla warfare that was started by Shivaji was an edge for them even when they were lesser numbers. As his death was approaching in about 1707, he wrote a letter to one of his sons, and this is apart from that letter that I have done a lot of sins and I don't know what punishment awaits me. This was almost the end of Mughal Empire, and soon the Marathas will take over almost all of that empire. So we can conclude that it was his extremist ideology that was able to expand his empire, but at the end it just collapsed because it wasn't able to hold that much of land.